Greetings and welcome to another edition of The Great Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Praise be to Goddess. Well, here it is, another Wednesday, and I hope you had a terrific Festival of the Maiden this year. I hope you celebrated with your children and taught them about the maiden, how she's a child like them, and how wonderful it is to have the maiden in our lives. Because the maiden brings wonderful creativity and joy and energy to our lives, and the exhilaration of youth. She's the fountain of youth. So we love the maiden, and I hope you had a terrific time. The next holiday that we're celebrating is Easter or Ostara, which is the Christian Easter, but we don't celebrate the Christian Easter. We celebrate the goddess worshippers' Easter. So Easter, or I think it's Eostra or Ostara. We celebrate those every year, and we're going to celebrate them very soon. So mark it on your calendars. I think it's April 12th, but I'm not sure. So prepare. You can look it up. It falls on the same date as the Christian holiday, so you know what date it's going to be. And now I have for you some very interesting information about coffee. Today's subject is coffee, and I quit drinking coffee, and tea is just as bad because it's got caffeine. It's the caffeine that does it to you. And what it does is coffee can make you fat, and tea can make you fat. Anything with caffeine, even chocolate, can make you fat. Well, obviously chocolate makes you fat because it's got a lot of fat in it. But anything with caffeine can make you fat because it messes with all the hormones in your body. And I'm about to tell you about the deleterious effects of caffeine and why I quit coffee. Now, I'll tell you my own personal experience. Since I quit drinking coffee, I've lost 5 pounds. And for months, my weight loss was stalled and I couldn't lose any weight. And all of a sudden, I dropped 5 pounds just by quitting coffee. It was amazing. And so, without further ado, the deleterious effects of caffeine and coffee and tea for your listening pleasure. Caffeine causes you to pee away B12 and other B vitamins. And even if you're a carnivore or meat eater, this can happen to you. You can become deficient in B12 just by drinking caffeine every day, because it causes you to literally piss away all your B vitamins, including B12, which are water soluble. So it just goes all out in your urine, all out of your body. And this can cause all sorts of problems, but the most obvious effect is a B12 deficiency is a type of anemia. It's pernicious anemia, and it can have deleterious effects on your health. You can become tired, sluggish, and not feel like exercising or going to the gym, so that can make you fat. Okay, depletes magnesium. And magnesium deficiency is associated with overweight. So people who are deficient in magnesium tend to be more overweight than people who are not deficient in magnesium. So there may be, it's not necessarily true like a one-to-one rate causation effect, but because it depletes magnesium, that may be one way that it contributes to you being overweight, because your magnesium all goes out in your pee, and then you gain weight. Causes adrenaline resistance. Now, you've heard of insulin resistance, where the cells don't want to take sugar, and the sugar goes through the whole body, damaging the body. Well, caffeine can cause adrenaline resistance. So when your adrenals produce adrenaline in your over your kidneys, your adrenals sit on top of your kidneys. They produce adrenaline to get you revved up and going. And the caffeine creates adrenaline resistance. So the cells are less likely to accept the adrenaline and act upon it to get you revved up, so it can leave you feeling sluggish. And I've had a lot more energy since I quit coffee, so I can attest to the fact that it messes with your adrenals in more ways than one, and you're about to see that it totally exhausts the adrenals eventually. But you'll find that out when I continue with this list. Exhausts the adrenals and causes fatigue. Now, the effect of caffeine is to cause the adrenals to constantly pump out adrenaline. And this adrenaline may give you a rush initially, and you may feel more energetic at first. But eventually it exhausts the adrenals, so the adrenals respond more slowly or not at all. And because it exhausts the adrenals, eventually you can have adrenal burnout. And that can leave you flat as a pancake, just totally flat, totally exhausted all the time. And you don't want adrenal exhaustion, but it exhausts the adrenals by constantly causing the adrenals to pump out more and more adrenaline, and it leaves you feeling very exhausted. And that's called adrenal exhaustion, by the way. And I suspect I had adrenal exhaustion from drinking coffee. Okay, another effect of caffeine. Causes vascular resistance, which causes decreased blood flow, which results in less usage of fat. Now, this may be hard to explain, but what it does is it constricts your blood vessels. Your blood vessels close up. They don't close up completely, but they constrict. So it raises your blood pressure. And this is a well-known effect of caffeine that raises blood pressure. Have you ever heard that caffeine can raise your blood pressure? Well, if you have high blood pressure, you shouldn't drink caffeinated beverages like Coca-Cola or coffee or tea, or even hot chocolate has caffeine in it. And it also has theobromine, which is very similar to caffeine. And so it causes vascular resistance. It causes the blood vessels to constrict, which raises blood pressure. And what this does is because there's less blood flow to the extremities, to your arms and legs, and to your muscles, there's less blood flow to your muscles. The fat can't get to the muscles to be used for energy. It can't get to the extremities to be used for energy. So there's less fat usage, so the fat accumulates. That's just one effect of caffeine. And it gets worse from here. Cortisol levels raised by caffeine. And cortisol promotes fat storage and exhausts another part of the adrenals. So if your adrenals weren't already completely exhausted by producing adrenaline, another part of the adrenal gland produces cortisol, and the caffeine stimulates the production of cortisol, which in turn stimulates fat storage. So it actually causes you to store more fat. And then that part of the adrenals gets exhausted, so your adrenals are completely exhausted all the way through. And this can leave you in a state of total collapse. And by the way, cortisol is inflammation producing, and inflammation stimulates fat cell production. So it can make you fat in more ways than one. Plus, inflammation goes through your whole body, and it burns your joints, and it can cause osteoarthritis and all sorts of bad things. So you don't want cortisol. Cortisol causes insulin resistance. So here's another effect of caffeine. Caffeine causes the adrenals to produce cortisol, and the cortisol causes insulin resistance. So indirectly, the caffeine is actually causing more insulin resistance, so it makes diabetes worse. And by the way, it makes diabetes worse in more ways than one. And I do have diabetes, so this is a concern of mine. It can make insulin resistance worse in more ways than one. So keep on listening and you'll hear some more effects, bad effects of caffeine that it can cause. And by the way, insulin resistance causes the pancreas to pump out more insulin, which also stimulates fat storage. So far it stimulates fat storage in more ways than one. Diuretic effect, dehydrates, water needed for weight loss. Now, if you've ever heard, if you're dieting, drink enough water, because if you don't drink enough water, you'll be dehydrated, and that'll stall your fat loss. Well, guess what caffeine does? It's a diuretic, which means you pee away all your water, and then you need more water. And if you don't replace that water, if you don't drink 1 for 1, like a mug of water for every cup of coffee, you're going to lose a significant amount of water, and that can stall your weight loss, thus leading to fat gain. Causes loss of B vitamins, which causes depression. And then the result of the depression is that you eat bad foods, and it causes a loss of dopamine. So, another thing it does is you lose B vitamins that causes depression, and then you eat bad foods, and then you lose dopamine and you become more depressed and you eat even more bad foods. So it really causes a vicious cycle of overeating. This caffeine does. It can make you depressed by losing dopamine and losing B vitamins. Caffeine harms gut bacteria, interferes with absorption of micronutrients. And these micronutrients are essential for fat loss because they're involved in all the metabolic processes in the body. Now, if you've never heard of the gut microbiota or the gut flora before, what they are is they're trillions of bacteria living inside your gut, living inside your small intestines and your large intestines. And what they do is they help to break down food, and they break down fiber into butyrate, which is anti-inflammatory and very helpful to the body and helps with cardiovascular health. When you lose those gut bacteria, it causes a total cascade through your whole system. And this happens to people who go for colonoscopies frequently, that their doctors order up a colonoscopy flippantly and without caring about the patient. And it causes a whole cascade of events in the body that are negative. Well, caffeine can do that. Caffeine can kill your gut microbiota for months or even years. And so it keeps them down, it keeps the population down, and then the bad guys can grow, which helps make you fat. Disrupts sleep. Also, the theobromine in chocolate can disrupt sleep. And as we all know, a lack of sleep causes weight gain. There's a very strong association with people who are lacking sleep and weight gain. So because the lack of sleep causes you to gain weight, just think, if it causes you to gain weight and caffeine disrupts your sleep and theobromine in chocolate disrupts your sleep, then drinking hot chocolate or coffee or tea right before bedtime or even in the morning, sometimes it disrupts your sleep cycle all day long after you've had a mug of coffee or a cup of tea. It lasts all day long. The caffeine persists in your system, and eventually it can cause a lack of sleep, which contributes to weight gain. Okay, vascular resistance inhibits the frontal lobe, impairs judgment, leading to overeating. This is another effect of caffeine. It because it does that vascular constriction that I told you about before, where the blood vessels close. There's less blood flow to the frontal lobe of your brain. And not only is this bad because it's lacking oxygen and cells are dying from the lack of oxygen to the brain, but also it makes your head fuzzy, so it impairs your judgment, and then you feel like overeating. So that it impairs your judgment just like alcohol does. You know, when you drink alcohol and then you got the munchies and you eat this and that and things you would never eat because you're tempted, because your inhibitions are down. Well, caffeine has the same effect as alcohol. Okay, suppresses the production of melatonin. Less slow wave sleep, which regulates body fat. Here's another way it contributes to overweight. It suppresses the production, caffeine actually suppresses the production of melatonin. Okay, and melatonin is a brain chemical associated with sleep. So you get less slow wave sleep as a result of less melatonin. You get less slow wave sleep because melatonin is essential for slow wave sleep. And slow wave sleep is the part of the body, the part of the brain that regulates fat production and inhibits fat production. So when you have less slow wave sleep, you gain weight. And that is a very deleterious effect of caffeine. It's another way that it can make you fat. Imbalances levels of serotonin so that you feel awful and overeat in response. There's another way that it affects your brain. The caffeine can affect your brain by imbalancing the levels of serotonin in the brain. And serotonin is the feel-good chemical. So if you have less serotonin, you're depressed. And what do you do when you're depressed? You overeat. A lot of people who drink coffee every day or tea every day report getting the munchies later in the afternoon and crave sweets especially. That's because they have less serotonin. And maybe eating a sweet causes a pick-me-up sensation. It raises the levels of serotonin back to normal, so people overeat for that reason too. Caffeine is addicting, and when you have an addiction, you have withdrawal symptoms. So here's another effect of caffeine. Now this might not necessarily be associated with overweight. It may not. But when you stop drinking coffee, you have withdrawal symptoms. And this can happen any time of the day, anytime. Even if you like drinking coffee every day, you can still have withdrawal later in the afternoon. And the withdrawal symptoms are like malaise, tiredness. And I had this effect in my brain when I stopped drinking coffee. I had withdrawal immediately. Within the next 4 to 5 days, I was in withdrawal, and I felt sleepy all the time. My brain was releasing chemicals to make me sleepy, and I felt myself dozing off all the time. Now I'm back to normal. I have energy now, and I'm alert. Now that I'm off the coffee and weaned myself off the coffee, I can stay awake. But before that, the coffee was causing a withdrawal symptom that made me very sleepy. The brain literally releases sleep chemicals that make you want to fall asleep, and that's in response to caffeine withdrawal. Lost 5 pounds or more cutting out caffeine. This person quit coffee, and she lost 5 pounds immediately, and she kept on losing. She kept on losing weight every single week after she quit coffee. And I've already lost 5 pounds, and I've only been off of coffee for a couple of weeks. So it does work. Suppresses levels of growth hormone. Inhibits muscle repair after exercise. Now this might be one of the worst effects of caffeine of all. The caffeine literally suppresses levels of growth hormone. And growth hormone is essential for cellular repair because it stimulates. It's from your your brain, your pituitary gland produces growth hormone, and it goes through your whole body, helping the cells repair themselves after exercise. It's stimulated and released in response to exercise so that the muscles can repair themselves. Well, without the growth hormone, the caffeine inhibits the release of growth hormone, so the muscles don't grow, and they can't repair themselves after exercise, leaving you tired and achy and sore all the time from caffeine, and that can inhibit you from exercising. Causes leptin resistance. This is the worst of all. Caffeine causes leptin resistance in the little cells in your body, in your brain, and in your stomach. It causes leptin resistance. Leptin is your satiation. Interferes with satiation. It's your satiation chemical. It tells your brain, I'm full, stop eating. When you don't have enough leptin, you get the munchies and you overeat all the time. Have you ever seen a rat? They breed a rat to have a leptin deficiency. And it's enormously fat compared to the normal rat. The normal rat is thin, and the rat with leptin deficiency is grotesquely obese. Well, it interferes with your satiation, so you overeat because you don't know when to stop, because you have no signal telling you that you're full. So that's one of the most insidious effects of caffeine of all. Coffee, tea, chocolate, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, you name it. Any caffeinated beverage can do this to you, even energy drinks. So-called energy drinks leave you with less energy because they make you fat. Increases estrogen levels. See, it just keeps getting worse and worse, doesn't it? Increases estrogen levels. Promotes fat storage. Increases risk of cancer. Suppresses progesterone, a feel-good hormone. Can cause fibroids and heavy flow periods. Now, if you're a woman, this is of concern to you. And if you're a man, it's even worse because it can cause you to grow man boobs. You know, the man boobs on heavy guys? That's from drinking coffee. And it increases levels of estrogen. Estrogen is the hormone that tells women to store fat as fat. It creates fat cells. The fat cells grow all over the body in response to the chemical estrogen. And that's what makes women so round and curvaceous. Well, it increases the estrogen levels beyond a level that's safe. And it promotes fat storage. Estrogen is a chemical that also increases your risk of certain types of cancer. For men, it would be their prostate. For women, it would be uterine cancer or ovarian cancer, and or it could cause breast cancer. And it suppresses progesterone, which is a feel-good hormone. So in women and even in men, it suppresses progesterone, which makes you feel good. So it makes you feel awful. You feel lousy and you feel depressed from drinking caffeine, and it can cause fibroids and heavy flow periods in women. So, these are many ways that caffeine can interfere. And another thing it does is it can cause insulin resistance directly. The caffeine causes insulin resistance. It's not listed here on my list, but I wrote it down later that caffeine can cause insulin resistance, which makes diabetes worse, which stimulates the production of insulin, which makes you fat. So it can make you fat in many, many ways. Caffeine can make you fat in many, many ways. And the beverages that have caffeine are coffee, tea. Now we're talking about green tea, white tea, oolong tea, those types of teas, not herbal teas, because herbal teas don't contain true tea. They don't contain true tea, they're herbal teas. So herbal teas are all right. but the green tea and the black tea and the oolong tea and the white tea all have real tea leaves. The original tea plant, Camellia sinensis. So you want to avoid coffee, real tea, caffeinated beverages like energy drinks or Coca-Cola or Pepsi, unless they're caffeine free. You could drink caffeine free. Why you'd want to drink caffeine free is beyond me because it's full of sugar. But you could drink caffeine free. But these effects of caffeine now are, let's see, I believe, I'm not entirely sure, but I believe that Dr. Linda Carney was the source of this information. And she was in the Real Truth About Fat Loss Summit. So Dr. Linda Carney starred in the Real Truth About Fat Loss Summit, and or Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit. That's what it was. The Real Truth About Weight Loss Summit. And Dr. Linda Carney talked about all of these things that caffeine can do to you, and I was shocked. I never knew caffeine could make you fat in so many different ways. But it does. Caffeine makes you fat, and if you quit coffee, you're going to lose weight. And next week, I will have for you the subject of different kinds of fats and what fats are essential, what fats are non-essential. I'm Sarah Jane Alpha Wolf signing off. Have a terrific week and take care.